The invisible language, mastering the art of reading people. The skill that changes everything. Most people are blind to what's happening right in front of them. They walk through conversations, meetings, relationships, and entire lives, interpreting only words. They listen to what people say and completely miss what people show. They believe the narrative instead of observing the reality. And that blindness costs them. It costs them opportunities, relationships, peace of mind, and the ability to make truly informed decisions. But you're about to change that. The truth is simple. People are broadcasting their authentic selves constantly. Not through their rehearsed speeches or carefully constructed explanations, through the subtle, honest language of their body, their emotions, and their behavior patterns. The question isn't whether you can learn to read people. The question is whether you're willing to pay attention. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about becoming cynical or suspicious. This is about developing clarity. It's about seeing human beings as they actually are, not as they wish to appear. And when you can do that, everything changes. Your relationships deepen, your decisions improve, your influence grows, your life becomes more intentional. The world belongs to those who see clearly. Those who see clearly make better choices. Those who make better choices build better lives. Let's begin. Part 1. The Foundation, Chapter 1. Breaking the words barrier. We are taught from childhood to value words above all else. Words are organized, official, explainable. Words create distance between our inner reality and what we allow others to access. Words are the great cover-up mechanism of human society. But here's what almost nobody understands. Words are the least reliable measure of truth. Think about the last time you felt uncomfortable around someone, even though they said all the right things. Think about the moments when a simple sentence, delivered with the right tone, told you more about someone's character than an hour of conversation. That discomfort, that intuitive knowing, that wasn't magic. That was you picking up on signals that contradicted the narrative. Your nervous system is far smarter than your rational mind. It reads micro-expressions, catches tone shifts, notices energy changes, and processes thousands of data points before your conscious mind even forms a complete thought. The problem is that we've been trained to ignore those signals in favor of the explicit message. Stop doing that. Instead, begin training yourself to listen for what isn't being said, not through paranoia or suspicion, but through genuine curiosity. When someone answers a question, notice what they didn't address. When someone shares good news, observe whether their energy matches their words. When someone apologizes, pay attention to whether their body language conveys actual remorse or defensive protection. The human being is a walking contradiction most of the time. We say things we don't entirely mean. We claim we're fine when we're falling apart. We promise commitment while our actions suggest disengagement. We're not evil for doing this. We're just human. We protect ourselves. We manage how we're perceived. We navigate social hierarchies by adjusting our presentations. Understanding this changes everything. It means you stop expecting words to be the primary source of truth. Instead, you begin treating words as one day, a point in a much larger picture. Pay attention to what people choose not to discuss. If a topic keeps getting redirected, there's something there worth understanding. If someone becomes vague about their plans, their feelings, or their intentions, that vagueness itself is information. If certain areas of conversation are completely off limits, that boundary tells you something about what they are protecting. Notice the difference between what people claim to want and how they actually allocate their time and energy. Someone might say family is their priority, but if they're constantly canceling plans and keeping their phone in their hand, their actions are broadcasting a different message. Someone might claim they love their job, but if their voice goes flat when they talk about it, their body is overruling their words. This is not about judgment, it's about accuracy, and accuracy allows you to respond to reality instead of fantasy. The most powerful conversations happen when you stop expecting people to explain themselves clearly and start paying attention to what they're actually revealing. Ask fewer questions, make fewer assumptions, simply observe the gap between what's said and what's shown. That gap is where understanding lives. Chapter 2. The body speaks first before words ever form in the brain. The body has already reacted. Before a person decides what they're going to say, their nervous system has already determined whether they feel safe, threatened, open, or closed. Before they craft their response, their posture has already revealed their emotional state. The mouth is a sophisticated filtering system, capable of lying with impressive consistency. The body is not. This is your advantage. If you learn to read the body, you read the truth. Posture is the baseline. When people feel confident, their spine straightens slightly, their shoulders drop, their limbs take up space. There's an ease to how they hold themselves, almost like they're comfortable claiming their place in the room. But when people feel uncertain, small, or threatened, the body contracts, the shoulders rise defensively, the arms come closer to the torso, they make themselves physically smaller, as if trying to disappear or protect their core. Notice how this changes moment to moment. Someone relaxed during casual conversation might suddenly tighten when a sensitive topic arrives. That's not coincidence. That's the nervous system responding before the conscious mind catches up. The hands tell a complete story. When people feel in control, their hands are expressive and relaxed. They move naturally with their speech, adding emphasis without conscious effort. But when people feel anxious or like they're being evaluated, the hands often freeze, or they become fidgety, touching the neck, rubbing the wrists, picking at the fingers. These are self-soothing gestures that appear when someone is managing internal discomfort. Watch specifically for hands moving toward the face. When someone feels caught or exposed, their hand might move to their mouth, as if trying to stop words, or to their eye, as if blocking incoming information. When someone is concentrating hard on lying or managing their expression, their hand might touch their nose or cheek. These are involuntary responses to stress that people rarely control well. The face is a remarkable instrument. Despite our belief that we can control it, the face leaks emotion constantly. There are micro expressions, brief facial movements that last less than a second, that flash across the face before a person has time to organize their presentation. A flicker of anger before the smile appears, a flash of fear before the confident response, a moment of contempt before the agreement. These flickers are honest. The person doesn't even know they're happening. Their conscious mind is still constructing the appropriate response, while their face has already revealed the truth. If you train your attention, you start catching these. You won't catch every one, but you'll catch enough to get a clearer picture than most people ever see. The eyes themselves are worth studying. Contrary to popular myth, liars don't always look away. In fact, some deliberately maintain eye contact to appear truthful, overcompensating in a way that actually feels unnatural. What matters more is the quality of the eye contact. Is it relaxed, or is it forced and intense? Does it fluctuate naturally with the conversation, or is it rigid? Does the person make eye contact less frequently when addressing sensitive topics? The pupils tell a story too. They dilate when someone is interested or attracted to something. They contract when someone is angry or under stress. You probably won't examine pupils closely in casual conversation, but if you're paying attention to overall eye behavior, you're already gathering crucial information. Notice where people look when they're thinking. People tend to look up and to the right when constructing something new, creating a story, imagining a scenario. They tend to look down or to the left when accessing a real memory. This isn't a perfect science, but it's another data point in the larger picture. The mouth and jaw carry enormous tension when people are stressed. You might see the corners of the mouth tighten slightly. The jaw might clench. Someone might press their lips together as if containing something. These aren't obvious signs, but they're reliable indicators that the person is managing uncomfortable emotions. Breathing is perhaps the most honest indicator of all. Fear shortens the breath. Relief deepens it. Anxiety makes breathing shallow. Calm makes it slow and full. You probably won't watch someone's chest rise and fall with clinical precision, but if you're present enough, you can sense when someone's breathing has changed. And when you notice that shift, you've noticed their nervous system responding before anything else. The body is always broadcasting. The person might not know they're doing it. They might be completely unconscious of the message their posture is sending, of what their hands are revealing, of what their face has just flashed. But it's there, and once you train yourself to read this language, you access a dimension of understanding that most people never reach. Chapter 3. Energy doesn't lie. Energy is the most underestimated form of communication in human interaction. Most people focus on what they can see in a concrete way: facial expressions, body position, hand movements. But they completely miss energy, which is arguably more revealing than any specific gesture. Energy is the overall frequency a person carries. It's what you feel in their presence before they say anything. It's what remains in the room after they leave. Some people walk into a space and you immediately feel more anxious. Others bring a sense of calm. Some make you want to lean toward them. Others make you want to create distance. That isn't magic or intuition alone, though intuition is part of how you perceive it. That's you reading their energy, which is generated by their emotional state, their intentions, their openness or defensiveness, their presence or distraction. Energy is harder to fake than words. Someone can perform confidence through words and controlled movements for short periods. But sustaining that performance drains them. Eventually, their real energy leaks through. The excitement they claimed to feel fades into flatness. The confidence they projected becomes visible tension. The engagement they displayed becomes obvious distraction. This is why extended time with people reveals truth that small interactions might hide. In a 5-minute conversation, someone can maintain a presentation. In an hour, cracks appear. In a day, the real energy emerges. Pay attention to how someone's energy shifts when a topic changes. You're discussing something light and casual, and the energy stays open and flowing. Then you mention something that touches on something real or vulnerable for them, and you feel the energy contract. It becomes tighter, more guarded. Even if their words stay positive, the energy tells a different story. Notice when someone's energy is directed toward you with full presence, and when it's distant or divided. Some people have mastered the art of looking like they're fully engaged while mentally checking out. Their body might be in the room, but their energy is elsewhere. The opposite is also true. Someone might be physically distant, but emotionally present with you, creating an intensity that makes you feel truly seen. Energy also tells you about someone's confidence level and self-worth. People who feel secure in themselves carry an energy that's self-contained. They don't need external validation. They're comfortable in their own skin. But people who are seeking approval, status, or reassurance carry an anxious energy. It's needy. It reaches outward constantly, looking for evidence that they're okay. You can feel the difference immediately. When someone is lying or managing a difficult emotion, their energy becomes slightly chaotic. It's not calm and flowing. It's jagged. There's an undertone of strain. It's like trying to feel two things at once: the emotion they're actually experiencing and the emotion they're trying to project. That internal conflict creates an energetic dissonance you can absolutely perceive if you're paying attention. Energy is also reflected in pacing. Someone at ease moves and speaks at a natural, sustainable rhythm. But someone who's anxious, angry, or excited moves faster. Their speech quickens. Their gestures become more frequent. There's an urgency to them that their words might not match. Conversely, someone who's shutting down, depressed, or protecting themselves moves slowly. Everything becomes heavier. The energy lowers and sinks. The environment also carries energy. A space where people are happy and at ease feels different than a space where tension, fear, or conflict exists. Walk into a house where a couple is struggling and you feel it. Walk into an office where the team is energized and you sense that too. This is because energy is contagious. People's emotional states and intentions fill the space and affect everyone in it. This is why trust your gut reaction when you first meet someone or enter a situation. Your body picks up on energy faster than your mind can articulate it. If something feels off, it probably is. If someone feels trustworthy, they probably are. You might not be able to explain exactly why, but that's because you're reading energy, which is multidimensional and hard to reduce to words. Learn to differentiate between different types of energy. Someone can have positive, warm energy while also having boundaries and presence. That's healthy energy. Someone can have friendly energy that's actually empty and performative. That's false energy. Someone can be quiet with deep, grounded energy. That's authentic energy. Learning to feel these differences is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Part 2. Reading deeper. Chapter 4. The architecture of emotions. Emotions are not random events. They follow a structure. They build, escalate, peak, and resolve in patterns that are relatively predictable if you know what to look for. Understanding this architecture allows you to predict how someone might behave before they act. It allows you to intervene before conflict escalates. It allows you to meet people with compassion instead of judgment, because you understand what's actually driving their behavior. Most people experience an emotion as a sudden arrival. They feel angry, sad, scared, or guilty seemingly out of nowhere. But if you trace backward, there's always a preceding cause. Something triggered a thought. That thought created a feeling. That feeling activated a physiological response. The person experiences that response as emotion. The trigger is often external, but not always what it appears. Someone snaps at you during a meeting, and you think they're angry at you. But they might be angry at themselves, frustrated with someone else, or triggered by something you said that reminded them of a past hurt. The anger is real, but its actual source is hidden beneath the surface presentation. This is why understanding someone requires understanding their history, their values, their sensitivities, and their patterns. The same comment that would roll off one person might devastate another, not because the comment is different, but because it hits different wounds. Pay attention to what consistently triggers emotional reactions in people. Someone who becomes defensive whenever their competence is questioned is revealing something about their insecurity. Someone who gets angry when feeling unheard is revealing something about their need for acknowledgement. Someone who retreats when facing conflict is revealing something about their fear of abandonment or their belief that their voice doesn't matter. None of this is bad information. It's diagnostic. It tells you what matters to that person, what they're protecting, what they're defending against. And once you know that, you can navigate the relationship with much more skill. Emotions also have a timing component. They take time to build. Someone doesn't usually go from zero to complete rage in a moment. There's escalation. The body tenses, the voice rises, the face flushes. If you catch the person during the early stages of escalation, you have opportunity to diffuse. But if you wait until they've reached their peak, they're often no longer accessible to reason. This is why noticing the small shifts early matters so much. That first tightening in someone's jaw, that slightly elevated tone, that first sign of irritation. These are the moments to pause, to create space, to gently slow things down. Most people miss these moments completely. They don't notice until the person is already activated and reactive. Understanding someone's emotional baseline is crucial. What's their normal? What's their resting state? Once you know that, deviations become obvious. Someone who's normally quiet and reserved suddenly becoming talkative is significant. Someone who's usually energetic suddenly becoming withdrawn is significant. These shifts signal that something's happening internally. Different emotions also have different physical signatures. Anger makes the body rigid and the face flushed. Sadness makes the body heavy and the voice flat. Fear makes the body tight and the movements careful. Shame makes the body want to hide and the voice quiet. Anxiety makes the body restless and the movements fidgety. The more you pay attention to these signatures, the faster you can identify what someone's actually experiencing beneath whatever they're saying. Emotions also have different time horizons. Some emotions are acute. They arrive suddenly and can be intense, but they pass relatively quickly. Other emotions are chronic. They're lower intensity but persistent, coloring someone's baseline emotional state. Someone might be acutely angry about something specific, but chronically anxious about their worth. Understanding both dimensions matters. One of the most useful things to recognize is when someone is experiencing conflicting emotions simultaneously. Someone might feel happy about their own success while also feeling jealous of someone else's. Someone might feel relieved about a breakup while also feeling grief. Someone might feel proud of a decision while also feeling fear about the consequences. These mixed emotions create the internal conflict that often leaks out in confusing ways. When you recognize that someone is dealing with conflicting emotions, it creates compassion. You stop seeing them as simply inconsistent or confusing. You see them as navigating a complex internal world, just like everyone is. Chapter 5. The pattern recognition advantage. Individual moments are noise. Patterns are signal. One person can have a bad day. One person can react poorly to a single situation. One person can say something careless in a moment of distraction. But when patterns emerge, when you see the same behavior repeating across different contexts, different people, different situations, you're seeing something real about who that person is. This is where most people fail in reading others. They take single moments too seriously. They overinterpret one comment or one action. They don't zoom out to see the larger arc. But if you train yourself to think in patterns, you gain accuracy that's remarkable. Start observing how people treat those they don't need anything from. Do they maintain the same kindness with the janitor that they show the CEO? Do they have the same patience with the quiet colleague that they show the charismatic leader? How someone behaves when there's nothing to gain from the person they're interacting with is incredibly revealing. Kindness shown only when it's advantageous isn't kindness, it's strategy. But kindness shown consistently, regardless of social hierarchy or benefit, reveals character. Notice how someone responds when their plans change. Do they become irritable and rigid? Do they roll with it easily? Do they blame others? Do they find the solution? The way someone handles small disruptions gives you insight into their adaptability, their resilience, and their emotional regulation. And these traits predict how they'll handle larger challenges. Watch how someone speaks about people who aren't present. This is perhaps the most revealing pattern of all. Someone who speaks poorly of others in private is revealing their habitual thought patterns and their character when they think there are no consequences. Someone who speaks well of others, even people they disagree with or have conflict with, is revealing a baseline respect and generosity. You can tell a lot about someone's integrity by how they talk about the absent. Pay attention to how someone follows through on commitments, especially small ones. Someone who consistently cancels plans, doesn't return messages, or forgets promises isn't just disorganized. They're revealing their actual priorities and their respect for other people's time. Someone who shows up when they say they will, who follows through on small commitments before big ones, is revealing reliability. Notice how someone handles receiving criticism or feedback. Do they immediately become defensive? Do they listen and consider? Do they blame the other person? Do they become withdrawn? This pattern, how someone receives information about themselves that they didn't ask for and might not want to hear, is one of the strongest indicators of their capacity for growth and self-awareness. People who can hear criticism without immediately shutting down are people capable of genuine change. People who consistently blame, deflect, or withdraw are revealing a fixed mindset. Watch how someone celebrates the success of others. This is huge. Some people genuinely light up when someone else wins. Others go quiet or find something negative to mention. This pattern reveals whether they're secure enough to feel joy without comparison, or whether they're so insecure that others' wins feel like threats to their own worth. Pattern recognition also applies to how people manage their own lives. Someone who constantly complains about their situation but makes no changes is revealing a learned helplessness or avoidance. Someone who takes small steps toward what they want, even when progress is slow, is revealing agency and intention. You can predict someone's future by observing their patterns, because patterns tend to repeat until something intentional interrupts them. The pattern of how someone treats you specifically matters too. Has their treatment of you been consistent, or does it shift dramatically based on whether they need something from you? Have they followed through on what they've said, or do their words and actions increasingly diverge? Have they supported your growth or undermined it? These patterns tell you what kind of relationship you actually have with this person, regardless of what they claim. Chapter 6. Decoding Inconsistency. Inconsistency is not random. It is information. When what someone says contradicts what their body shows, when their words don't match their actions, when their stated values don't match their actual priorities, these aren't mistakes or exceptions. They're data points that deserve your attention. The human mind is remarkable at creating explanations and rationalizations. We tell ourselves stories that allow us to do things that contradict our stated values. we compartmentalize, maintaining completely different personas in different contexts. We lie to ourselves first, then to others, but underneath all of that, the truth is leaking out constantly. When someone says they're not angry, but their jaw is clenched and their voice is tight, the inconsistency is the message. Their conscious mind is trying to maintain a certain narrative, but their body is expressing what they're actually experiencing. The inconsistency reveals that some part of them knows they're not being honest. When someone says they care about you, but their actions consistently prioritize others, that inconsistency is telling you the truth. People allocate time and energy to what matters to them. If you're consistently low on that list, that's not an accident, that's a priority. The words might say one thing, but the allocation of their most finite resources, time and attention, tells a different story. When someone claims to value honesty, but you catch them being dishonest, that's not about one bad moment. That's a pattern that will likely continue. The inconsistency between their stated value and their actual behavior suggests that either they don't truly hold that value, or they hold it inconsistently depending on convenience. Learning to spot inconsistency allows you to stop believing reassuring words while ignoring contradicting actions. It allows you to operate in reality instead of hope, and that shift changes everything about how you make decisions regarding other people. One specific type of inconsistency to watch for is the mismatch between public and private behavior. Someone might present as confident and assured in professional settings, but you notice they're anxious and second-guessing themselves in private conversations. Someone might claim to be laid back and easygoing, but you observe them being controlling and rigid. These public-private inconsistencies often reveal insecurity or a false presentation that can't be maintained under all conditions. Another pattern is seasonal inconsistency. Someone might be warm and engaged during good times, but withdraw or become critical during stress. This inconsistency reveals that their positive behavior is conditional. It depends on circumstances aligning favorably. Someone whose kindness is stable across circumstances is showing you something different than someone whose kindness appears and disappears based on conditions. Pay attention to inconsistencies in how someone treats different people. Someone who's charming to people they want to impress, but dismissive to people they perceive as less important, is revealing their actual values. The inconsistency shows you who they really are, someone whose respect and kindness are transactional, not genuine. Inconsistencies in timeline and details are worth noting too. If someone's story about what happened keeps changing, if details shift when they tell at different times, that inconsistency suggests they're either not remembering accurately or they're modifying the story to serve them. Either way, it's a signal that something in the narrative isn't reliable. Part 3. Advanced Reading Chapter 7. Intention Detection. People broadcast their intentions long before they announce them. Intentions are the underlying purposes, conscious and unconscious, that drive behavior. Someone might intend to manipulate you, or to help you, or to use you, or to build genuine connection. These intentions shape everything they do and say, and while people are often clever about hiding their intentions consciously, their behavior consistently reveals them if you know what to look for. One of the clearest indicators of intention is consistency in how someone treats you when there's nothing to gain. If someone is kind to you only when they want something, their intention is transactional. If someone is kind to you regardless of whether there's benefit, their intention is likely genuine care. These are very different intentions, and they predict very different futures for your relationship. Notice the direction of someone's energy. Does it flow toward you consistently, or does it come and go based on their needs? Someone with genuine interest in you maintains contact, asks about your life, remembers details you've shared, and follows up. Someone whose interest is situational or exploitative will only engage when they need something. The direction and consistency of their energy reveals whether they're moving toward you or toward something they want from you. Pay attention to whether someone is curious about you or performing interest. Curious people ask questions and genuinely listen to the answers. They remember what you said and build on it. They're interested in understanding you. But someone performing interest asks questions but doesn't actually listen to the answers. They're more interested in appearing interested or finding an opening to talk about themselves. The difference is apparent if you're paying attention. Intention also shows up in how someone introduces change. Someone who's intending to drift away might slowly reduce contact, become less responsive, or gradually withdraw emotionally. They're hoping you don't notice or that you'll accept it gradually. Someone who intends to end a relationship might suddenly become very critical or create conflict. Someone who intends to deepen a relationship increases their presence and investment. The direction of the change reveals the intention behind it. Watch how someone handles your boundaries. If you set a limit and they respect it, their intention is to honor you. If you set a limit and they repeatedly test it or try to negotiate it away, their intention is to override your autonomy. If you set a limit and they respect it but clearly resent it, their intention is compliance without genuine respect. These different responses show you very different things about how this person actually regards you. Intention shows up in how someone positions themselves in your life. Are they moving toward greater intimacy and openness, or are they maintaining distance? Are they introducing you to their other relationships and integrating you into their life, or are they keeping you compartmentalized? Are they investing in your future together, or are they keeping their options open? These positioning choices reveal whether their intention is building something lasting with you or something more temporary. Notice also the intention behind someone's communication patterns. Are they reaching out to see how you are, or always reaching out when they need something? Do they remember important things in your life and follow up on them, or do they only contact you when it suits them? Do they share vulnerable moments with you, or do they only share when it's advantageous? Communication patterns show you whether their intention is to build genuine relationship or to access what they need from you. One powerful way to test intention is to observe what someone does when they can't benefit from you anymore. If you become less useful, less attractive, less valuable, do they maintain their behavior toward you, or does it shift dramatically? If it shifts dramatically, their intention was never about you. It was always about what you could provide. If it remains consistent, their intention is genuinely about the person you are. Chapter 8. The vulnerability test. How someone responds when you show genuine vulnerability is perhaps the most accurate test of their character and their intentions. Vulnerability is a filter that reveals who people are when they're not performing. When you share something real about yourself, something you're struggling with, something you're afraid of, something you're ashamed of, you create an opportunity for that person to either honor that disclosure or exploit it. Someone with genuine care will listen without judgment, take what you've shared as an honor, and either offer support or simply hold space for you. They won't weaponize it later. They won't gossip about it. They won't use it against you when conflict arises. They won't minimize your experience or try to fix it inappropriately. They'll simply honor that you trusted them with something real. But someone who uses people will listen for useful information. They might file away what you've shared to use later as leverage. They might share it with others as entertainment or bonding. They might pretend sympathy while noting your weaknesses. They might offer advice that's more about positioning themselves as superior than about actually helping you. The test of how someone responds to your vulnerability is not their immediate response. Anyone can perform care for a moment. The test is what happens over time. Do they remember what you shared? Do they reference it with sensitivity? Do they continue to honor it, or does it disappear from their awareness? Do they respect the trust you placed in them by keeping it private, or do they share it with others? The vulnerability test also reveals how someone handles your imperfection. When you admit a mistake, do they use it as evidence against you, or do they see it as a sign of your honesty? When you share a fear, do they mock it, or do they respect the courage it takes to name it? When you show that you don't have all the answers, do they see you as less competent, or do they appreciate your authenticity? Pay special attention to how someone responds to emotional vulnerability. When you cry, do they try to fix it or minimize it, or do they sit with you in your sadness? When you express fear, do they validate it or dismiss it? When you share shame, do they offer judgment or acceptance? These responses reveal whether they're comfortable with human emotion or whether they need you to stay controlled and composed for their own comfort. Someone's response to your vulnerability also shows you whether they're capable of genuine intimacy. Genuine intimacy requires the ability to hold space for someone else's real experience without making it about yourself. It requires not turning their vulnerability into a moment to talk about your own stuff. It requires prioritizing their experience. If someone consistently fails at this, if they always turn the conversation back to themselves, if they cannot handle emotional moments without getting uncomfortable or dismissive, they may not be capable of the kind of connection that true intimacy requires. Chapter 9. the observation discipline reading people is not a talent. It's a discipline. Like any discipline, it requires consistent practice, increasing awareness, and the willingness to notice what most people miss. The good news is that the practice field is everywhere. Every person you interact with is a lesson. Every conversation is data. Every moment offers the opportunity to see more clearly. Start with the practice of presence. Most people are not present during conversations. They are planning what they'll say next. They are thinking about their own problems. They are evaluating themselves. They are distracted. But if you cultivate the ability to be fully present, to actually listen, observe, and tune into what's happening in the moment, you immediately have an advantage. Being present means not multitasking during conversations. It means putting your phone away. It means making eye contact. It means listening to understand, not listening to respond. It means noticing your own reactions and managing them so they don't interfere with your perception. This sounds simple, but it's remarkably difficult for most people, which is why most people remain blind to what's right in front of them. Develop the practice of mental annotation during or after interactions. Practice noting what you observed. What did this person's body language show? What shifts happened in their energy? What was the tone underneath their words? What seemed consistent or inconsistent? What patterns did you notice? Writing these observations down trains your brain to notice more acutely and to remember what you've seen. Practice slowing your reactions. When someone says something, your instinct might be to immediately respond. But if you create even a small pause, just a moment where you breathe and take in what's happened before reacting, you give yourself space to observe more clearly. You notice more. You respond with more wisdom. You stay more centered. Create the discipline of non-judgment observation. This is crucial. If you're judging what someone's doing while you're observing it, you're adding your own interpretation and bias to what you're seeing. Instead, practice pure observation. This is what I see. This is what I notice. This is what the evidence suggests. No judgment, no assumption, just clear seeing. Study people across contexts. Someone behaves differently at work than they do at home, with strangers than with family, when they're winning than when they're struggling. The version of a person you see in one context is not the whole person. The more contexts you observe someone in, the more complete picture you have. If you only know someone in professional settings, you don't really know them yet. Practice with people you're not invested in. It's harder to observe objectively when you care about someone or when the interaction matters to you. Use low-stakes interactions, the barista, the stranger at the store, the person in line, to sharpen your observation skills. Notice how they move, speak, engage. Build your pattern recognition on these lower-stakes interactions so that when it matters, your skills are already developed. Develop the specific practice of baseline recognition. Spend enough time with someone to understand what's normal for them. How do they usually hold themselves? What's their typical energy? How do they usually respond? What's their typical pace of speech? Once you know their baseline, deviations become obvious, and deviations are always information. Practice the discipline of curiosity instead of conclusion. When you notice something unusual or that seems off, resist the urge to immediately explain it or conclude what it means. Instead, stay curious, observe more, gather more data, let the truth emerge instead of jumping to interpretation. This discipline alone will improve your accuracy dramatically. Chapter 10. Integration and Mastery. Reading people is not about having one perfect moment of clarity. It's about sustained attention, continuous learning, and the integration of countless small observations into a coherent understanding. As you develop this skill, you'll notice that reading becomes faster. What used to take an hour to understand, you'll pick up in minutes. What used to require explicit explanation, you'll recognize through subtle cues. What used to confuse you, you'll see clearly. This acceleration isn't magic. It's the result of practice and pattern recognition. Your brain has processed so many data points that it recognizes configurations instantly. You'll also notice that your relationships improve. When you can read people accurately, you stop trying to convince people who have already made up their minds. You stop chasing approval from people who aren't capable of giving it. You stop ignoring red flags and settling. You begin choosing people with far more wisdom. You build relationships on the foundation of seeing each other clearly rather than on illusion. Your leadership becomes more effective. You notice morale before it becomes a problem. You understand your team members' needs before they explicitly tell you. You can support people where they actually are instead of where you assume they are. You can identify who's struggling, who's ready for challenge, who needs reassurance, and who needs autonomy. This awareness makes you a far more skillful leader. Your ability to navigate conflict improves dramatically. You can sense when someone's becoming escalated before they explode. You can understand what's actually driving the conflict, which is often not what the surface argument suggests. You can respond with wisdom instead of reaction. You can diffuse tension before it becomes destructive. Your own self-awareness also increases. As you become more skilled at reading others, you become more aware of how you're being read. You notice your own patterns, your own triggers, your own habitual responses. You become conscious of what you're broadcasting. This awareness makes you both more authentic and more skilled at managing your own presentation when appropriate. The integration of this skill means moving from conscious effort to unconscious competence. You don't have to remind yourself to observe. You don't have to consciously work through analysis. You just notice, you're aware, you understand. It becomes natural. As you reach this level of mastery, an interesting thing happens. You become more compassionate. Understanding people clearly doesn't make you cold or detached. It makes you more human. You see what people are carrying. You understand why they react the way they do. You recognize that most people are doing the best they can with what they understand. This understanding creates patience and compassion instead of judgment. You also become more effective at getting what you actually want. When you understand people, you can communicate in ways they can actually hear. you can position your ideas in frames that matter to them. You can navigate social dynamics with skill instead of luck. You can build alliances, avoid unnecessary conflict, and create the kind of relationships that support your goals. The final integration is understanding that reading people is not about power over them. It's about clarity. It's about seeing reality instead of illusion. And people who see reality navigate the world far more skillfully than people operating on assumptions and hopes. Conclusion: the path forward, the skill of reading people, is not something you master and then stop developing. It's something you refine continuously for the rest of your life. Every new person teaches you something. Every interaction offers more data. Every moment of clarity about someone else teaches you something about yourself. Start small. Don't try to become an expert overnight. Pick one area to focus on this week. Maybe it's noticing someone's baseline. Maybe it's catching micro expressions. Maybe it's observing how people respond when they're uncomfortable. Build your foundation one skill at a time, then practice. Practice in low-stakes situations. Practice in conversations that don't matter as much. Build your competence in situations where the pressure is lower before you rely on these skills in situations where the stakes are high. Notice what you learn. After important interactions, take a moment to reflect. What did you understand? What did you miss? What would you do differently? This reflection builds learning into your practice. Be patient with yourself. You've probably been ignoring these signals your entire life. It takes time to recalibrate your awareness. It takes time to build new neural pathways. Some days you'll feel like you're not improving. Other days you'll suddenly notice something you never saw before. This is normal. Trust the process. Most importantly, remember why you're doing this. You're not learning to read people to manipulate them or control them. You're learning to see reality. And when you see reality clearly, you're free to make choices based on truth instead of illusion. You're free to build relationships that actually work. You're free to navigate your life with clarity and intention. That freedom changes everything. The world is full of people broadcasting their authentic selves every moment of the day. The question is whether you're paying attention. Start today. Watch carefully. Listen fully. Observe what people show you. Trust what you're learning. And as you develop this skill, you'll find that your relationships deepen, your decisions improve, and your life becomes far more intentional. You have everything you need. You just need the willingness to see clearly and the discipline to practice. That's what turns ordinary awareness into extraordinary understanding. Begin now. Pay attention. The truth is always there, waiting to be read.